My name is Kimberly Israel, and I am actually currently serving as a project director for a Safe Schools Healthy Student grant initiative called the Care Youth Project, but I'm actually an administrator through our People Services Department in the Escondido Union School District.
Awesome. Tell me about your personal experiences with military dependent students.
I don't have a lot of experience with military dependent students as I would recognize at this point. Most of my experience with military dependents has to do with the fact that I live in San Diego. I have two very small children, and I have a lot of friends whose husbands are deployed, so I experience it from their perspective in watching our young children grow up. But I think one of the issues for our district is we don't know enough about the numbers of our military connected students. So I know we're serving them because we're serving a lot of our kids in a lot of great proactive prevention and intervention programs, but our staff, we don't have necessarily an accurate data on the number of kids, and therefore we haven't put the time and energy that's probably necessary in terms of making sure that our clinicians and our support staff are trained in meeting their needs.
What do you think would be the most effective or efficient way to get those percentages and numbers to figure out where the military students are?
Well, we're doing two things this year. For the first time, we're participating in the federal impact aid serving of parents. So we're just implementing that in our district. So we'll get some larger scale numbers back. And then we'll also participate in, we've been really great at implementing the California Healthy Kids Survey. We're one of the few districts who actually get over 60% of our kids participating. So in this upcoming California Healthy Kids Survey, when we do the module, we'll be able to get from the kids' perspective how many kids are identifying themselves as military connected, and then we'll also be adding that piece to our parent module. So my hope is that we really, as a district, will have a good sense of our numbers by the end of this year. And in the meantime, we're going to be infusing some of this training in so that our staff are prepared.
That's great. Good steps forward.
Mm-hmm.
How has the organization you're affiliated with addressed the needs of military dependent students?
We haven't necessarily addressed the needs of military dependent students, but we have been really active in meeting the needs of all our students when it comes to social, emotional supports in the schools. And a lot of the themes that we know, a lot of the issues that are impacting our military connected youth and families are also affecting a lot of other of our students. And so over the past 10 years, we've developed a social work program in our district. We went from 0 in 2000 to now we have 16, and we have 7 social work interns. And they work really in partnership with their principals in doing everything from school site-based work, so more macro in the social work field, all the way down to from groups to doing individual work with students and families. So we know that those kids who are military connected are receiving services. It's just that we aren't able to use data to show us that those particular students are the ones that are involved in our program. But we really are reaching so many kids in our district with our programs. I'm extremely excited to say that through this grant project that we'll now be able to do more specific training with our social work staff on our site to be able to have the skills, have the understanding of the military culture, to be able to really address the needs of students and family. We think of cultural diversity and doing cultural diversity training, but we've never before thought of military families as having that distinct culture and the acronyms in the norms. One great part about being at this conference has been the dialogue at the table and hearing everybody's experience. One woman was talking about what happens after someone within the military family when there's a death, and if that person is enlisted, and what the process is in terms of the dependent and timing and being discharged and moving off the base, and things that as a school social worker we need to be aware of in terms of all the different transitions that students are facing in addition to the loss. So that's the exciting exciting part about being involved in this project is we'll really have great targeted training, and really our new norm is considering the military connected kids as that group that has unique needs.
What are some of the advantages or challenges that you faced encountering military connected students?
I think the biggest challenge was not having the understanding of the culture, how they experience things like death and deployment, and assuming that they are experiencing it the same way as any other child. And again, there are certainly lots of commonalities, but we need to be able to understand, again, that cultural piece, and understand the other pieces that go into place in terms of how they're experiencing and what kind of supports that they have. The other pieces, and I think districts, I think that's the new norm that's happening in districts and needs to happen in districts, is the old way of thinking was, we deal with academics at school sites, and if a child has a social, emotional, behavioral, family need, we're going to refer them out for services. So, for us in our district, we're very used to working with specific support systems that are in place for families within, specific bases. So we'll call up a specific base and say, what's your family support program? Can we refer a child to it? But, the new norm is we need to take ownership of it as schools. We can't assume that kids are going to be ready to learn in school just because we're putting a piece of paper in front of them that talks about math. We have to consider the fact of what's happening outside of school and what the stressors are and how that impacts learning. So there's a lot more of a movement towards working with the whole child. My hope is there will be more administrators trained in how to see that, how to see the academics and social emotional stuff come together. Our kids are coming into our classroom with such unique backgrounds, with such unique realities, and whether that's a child who's homeless that's coming in and isn't able to do homework because they don't have a place to do their homework, or whether it's a child who might be overwhelmed because, again, this is the 4th different school they've been to in 6 months, and just the fact of learning the routine and learning the community and learning the expectations of the teacher is such that it's going to put them behind in being able to do the schoolwork. So I think if we take this perspective of every child is unique and take the time to get to know the child and the family, get to see what some of those barriers are, take the time to address those barriers, then we're going to have kids that are better able to learn in the classroom. It's a complete paradigm shift in education, and I think especially because of the fact that we're in a time that we forget is extremely stressful on so many different levels for families, that to have the same expectation that kids are coming to school, that they're not stressed, that they have the same access to things outside of school as they did when we weren't in recession and we weren't in war. I think we're missing an opportunity here to really help kids by thinking about that whole piece that happens when they're not in the classroom.
Yeah, and then you're benefiting not only military students, you're benefiting everyone.
Benefiting everyone. So that's what's so exciting about this project, because again, it is ultimately going to benefit all of the kids. But even more so, it's going to give us training to really look at how we can be supportive of military connected students as well. So.
Yeah. What do you consider top priorities in working with military-dependent students?
Top priority for me is for I think educators in accepting and working with military-connected students is helping the student feel comfortable, having routine, being aware of different stressors, having that open relationship, outreaching to the family, and I think having the sensitivity and helping staff to have the sensitivity to the unique situations that they're faced with, whether it's deployment, whether it's working within cultural norms of whatever the particular division is. I think that, to me, is our biggest priority. School needs to be the safety and the consistency. Everything else can be kind of chaotic, stressful, but when they come to school, they shouldn't be re-traumatized, they shouldn't be re-stressed. It should be somewhere that they look forward to going and feel connected to. So.
I think that's the best that's been described is keeping school as the constant in an ever-changing, like every...
And again, here we are trying to do great things at the school, but that just hit home to me, that it's, we can't make that expectation. We need, if that's the case, then we at the schools need to do whatever we can to help bridge the experience that they had from one school to the next. Yeah. If we can't change the policy, which I love if the policy could change on that one, then we at least need to recognize what that new norm is, and when receiving a child like that, just blanket around that child the support and that parent.
And have that constant.
Yeah.
To have that, when you're at school, have it be that, almost support. So
yeah, gosh,
that's good.
I hope this project changes policy. I really do.
I feel like it has to. Can't go anywhere but up. 2 more questions. How do you think public education has responded to the needs of military-connected students?
I'd like to think that public education institutions that are located within military bases have changed. I'm assuming, like other districts, like our district, is that we underestimate the amount of kids that are impacted and are military connected. So my hope is that other school districts make it a priority to help identify those students, because truly, again, that's the new norm in the United States. Every year we continue to be in war. That's the number of kids, and every time we deploy another group of our military, we've got more and more kids that are in our schools that are affected. And it's not only military, it's also our parents who are contractors, oversee and work for government overseas in some ways. So I think that's how it's impacted, is that I think public education is now identifying that we need to do more to reach these kids and to make sure our teachers understand their needs. But that's only going to come from schools making it a priority to identify those kids.
Yeah. And the last question is, how do you think this workshop today what would you take out of it that would be valuable, or what do you think the interns or the people that are taking the workshop, what will they get out of it, and what will you get out of it?
Well, I think everyone's going to get out of it something a little bit different depending on their experiences coming in. I think that it has to be eye-opening for folks. Unlike myself, I'm a clinically trained social worker, so I've certainly know a lot about grief and loss and about the impact of trauma on children, but for me, it's getting the actual experiences from people who are connected to the military and saying, you might know about grief and loss, but this is how it's experienced by a child or a family member who's military connected, and here are these other pieces that go into it that make it even more complicated. So I hope that our graduate students, again, learn more and more about grief and loss, about change, transitions, the need for constancy, and I hope our school administrators just really see the need. You have to have the staff at the sites. Dollars have to be put into making sure that there's, in addition to the academic supports, that we have to be doing more with behavioral, social, emotional supports. Our kids are not learning in classrooms when they're dealing with stressors from outside the classroom. So unless we have people who can help bridge that, we're going to continue to have kids who aren't learning and aren't successful. So that's what I hope they get from the workshop.